straight away start. A very good morning to all of you. It's lovely that a conference of this nature about discussion on post-pandemic paradigm shift in higher education, a new global perspective is being organized by Sri Vaishnav Institute of Management Indore, which has a long legacy of more than 130 years. My co-panelists, or whatever you say, guests of honor, guests who have been there, who will be speaking after me, Professor Manindra Agarwal, Professor Ugur Govind, Professor Pradeep Kumar. And from this institute itself, Dr. Upinder Dhar very eloquently talked about the pandemic, the problems that are there, the sad saga that we have been going through, and then what are the opportunities that exist in the future. And Dr. Purushottam Das Pasari ji, Dr. Devendra Muchal ji, Dr. George Thomas, who has been after me for coming to this conference, all of you, I greet all of you on this occasion. And let me move on to, we are talking about post-pandemic, but I don't know when will that post-pandemic come. The pandemic is continuing. There was first wave when from around February, March last year, 2020, to about October, November, we were feeling safe. Now we have crossed that barrier. But come January 21, slightly in Mumbai, Maharashtra, it started off, and again, all over the country, the second wave is sweeping, and it's very unfortunate. Unlike in the first wave, in this particular wave, we have found very dear ones, very young ones also losing their lives. And it's a very sad story, which Dr. Upinder Dhar very pointed out. And therefore, the challenges are enormous. But nevertheless, we are sure this post-pandemic will come someday. May not be immediately, but at least 1 year down the line. Even if third wave comes, we will cross that barrier also. We will certainly, unfortunately, will lose some of our colleagues, friends, relatives, but there will be huge number of people who will survive, because the death rate is only 1%. We have to see the positive part of it. 99% of them are surviving. But we need to take care of ourselves. Let us follow all the COVID norms that are required wherever we go out. We have to take vaccination in our stride and then continue. Now, coming to the new era which is going to come up, fortunately, around the same time, the new national education policy was announced. And that came on 29th of July 2020. But I'm very happy that AICTE started its reforms process way back in March 2017 in one of the EC meetings. We had a clear 10-point agenda, and all of these have become part of the policy. So that is a very lovely thing that has happened. Whether, like Upinder ji told about regular revision of the curriculum, it's not because of pandemic. Even prior to pandemic, this was always the necessity. Whether it is industry interaction, whether it is curriculum being revised regularly, was always the need. But unfortunately, our universities were sluggish, and we gave an impetus by giving an open platform where all the curricula were revised by experts drawn from different IITs, industry people, and said, this is model curriculum. Many times when AICTE gives, people assume that we have to follow it everything letter by letter, word by word. But no, any university which is autonomous has every opportunity to tweak with that. But because they were not doing the curriculum revision, we gave revised curriculum. So you now make your minor changes in that, and all that what is desired has been embedded in that. And therefore, whether it is a mechanical engineering student, electrical, civil, or management or chemical engineering student, we said some courses are going to be relevant in all domains. That is artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, 3D printing, blockchain, augmented reality, virtual reality, cloud and quantum computing, cyber security. I think no one can be untouched by these phenomena. In fact, for example, AI and data science will become part of the school curriculum in the years to come. And therefore, if our universities and colleges do not adopt this, who else will? And therefore, we gave this. But we found that teachers were not trained. They were all the vintage era, someone graduated 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, never knowing what are these technologies all about. So we started our programs of faculty development with the nomenclature of Atal Academy. This Atal stands for AICTE's Training and Learning Academy. Atal Academies have been conducting these programs week after week. And in some of the weeks, it's a 5-day program, full week program. And earlier it was in the face-to-face mode. And again, I'm coming to the nomenclatures being used, quite often, online and offline. I have got some disturbed feeling when it says offline. In fact, the face-to-face mode is an online. You are together, but we call that as offline. And the one where we are in virtual environment, seeing to each other only in a photograph or a video, we call that as an online. I think, of course, this is online. We are simultaneously looking at each other, but the right terminology should have been synchronous and asynchronous. Even online education can be synchronous and it can be asynchronous. You can watch those videos. And we were also reading textbooks and reference books after the class is over. That is asynchronous learning. So there is a synchronous learning and asynchronous learning. And therefore, whether you call it real, virtual, online, offline, whatever the mode, all variety of blends have already been talked about in the future. And that is what is the post-pandemic scenario. But what we did using technology is a great enabler. And because our Atal Academy programs of training faculty in all these emerging areas suddenly stopped, we started off on the online mode and a 5-day full-fledged workshop for faculty members in all these emerging areas. There are about 20 areas which we have identified. And in the last 1 year during pandemic, through 948 programs, we have trained as many as 165,000 faculty. And it is a global world record. UK, London has already recognized this. And then we didn't leave at that in all variety of ways. What is also significant and important in the new education policy talks about value system, values, whether it is Indian knowledge systems or in general, the ethics, morals, integrity is very, very important and crucial for both society, industry, political life, and anywhere in the life. And therefore, how do we inculcate that? And that also we had started 3 years ago in the form of what is known as student induction program of 3 weeks duration, and for training of faculty in all these universal human values. These values are human values and they are universal, irrespective of the region, country, irrespective of the language, irrespective of the food that we eat, the clothes we wear. I think certain values are common for the entire humanity. And these values have to be inculcated amongst our students. So we started this universal human values student induction program, faculty development, and that too also on during this pandemic, and we have trained 40,000 teachers under this particular category. We have talked about examination reforms. Upinder Darji was again talking about what type of examination system should be there. How do we move away from only rote learning type of questions? They are also required, some of them. You have to remember something. Where our brain should not be kept, vacant, but it should have a lot of content in that. But all the questions which are set should not be based on memory. You can just reproduce and get marks without understanding. So I think moving away from that in terms of Bloom's taxonomy, how you can engage students in terms of evaluation through understanding of the subject, critical thinking, analytical ability, data analytics, mathematical ability, creativity, honesty, integrity, all embedded in the question paper. How do you create such question paper? I think we have this exam reform policy, which is a beautiful booklet, and we have created huge number of question papers and question banks, which are all there in our website. Please refer to them. And if you do some other question, which is much more interesting and which can be put into this, please share with us. And this is what is collaboration. AICT alone cannot do it. We have depended on all IITs, NITs, ordinary colleges, vice chancellors of all technical universities. All of them came forward. Only then we could make all of this happen. And therefore, collaboration and showing empathy to all those who are having problems is the most important thing. Two other things which I would like to reflect as part of the policy, which is there, which we often talk about a word called inclusiveness. When we say inclusive, this word inclusive has lots of meaning. These different people may take it in different ways, and some of the global ranking systems assume inclusivity or variety or diversity means people from different nations to be studying in one organization or one institution. But our definition is very broad. In our national institutional ranking framework, it is not just nationalities, but different states. Our country has so many 28 states and so many union territories. Each one has its own culture. So getting all the students on board is like getting 35 country students in one place. So that is our diversity. That is our access equity created for anyone and everyone, be it tribals, be it SC, ST, socially deprived sections, poorer sections, women, diversity in terms of gender, and also diversity in terms of other characters which some countries are following, and we were amiss in that. And that is, we started off with Divyangas, which we call today Divyangas. Otherwise, we used to call them physically disabled, then physically challenged, then physically differently abled. And then finally, our Prime Minister has taken a beautiful word, Divyanga. So I think these people are also to be onboarded. We should not be leaving them out. And therefore, we made a committee under the chairmanship of Professor Balakrishnan of IIT Delhi. He was a former deputy director also. And they have given a beautiful setup about not just accessibility in terms of movement in the campus. That we have already made mandated for last 5-6 years. That if you don't have toilets meant for physically challenged, if you don't have access through lift or some kind of a wheelchair from where you can carry them to the second floor, third floor, we don't give approvals to the institutions. But this is in terms of accessibility of different spaces in the organization. But real accessibility is if there is a dumb fellow or there is a person who is deaf or someone who is blind, someone who has some other disability, how we can take care of his education. They have difficulties of a different kind. And therefore, this committee has given beautiful recommendation, which we are going to implement. And to showcase some of the best examples, in every state, we would like to choose some institution who are ready and willing to do that. They will put in some money, even AICT will support. And at least, if not in all the institutions, at least in every state, there must be 1 or 2 institutions where such students should be in a position to go and study. And that is real inclusiveness. And then we have SLDs. We know that there are specific learning disabilities. We all know about dyslexic children. Some of the best scientists of the world, they were all dyslexic. They had a lot of problem in understanding mathematics in the beginning. All those, and some people had problem with the words. Jumbling used to happen in their brain. But they created such a research and innovation that we are making use of that today for our technology development. And therefore, how do we take care of dyslexic children in campuses? We had another committee headed by Dr. P.P. Chakravarti, former director of IIT Kharagpur, and beautiful report has come up, and that also we are implementing. And therefore, when we talk about access, equity, and this factor, the other part is there are students who are from rural areas who might have studied in their regional language. They might have studied in Hindi, some of them in Tamil, some in Telugu or Marathi or Kannada or Gujarati or Bengali. But because all the higher education is in English, some of them are left out. And our gross enrollment ratio is still struggling around 26-27%. And our goal is to reach 50% in the next 10 to 15 years. How can it happen? One is the online blended learning, all that what we have discussed, making use of SWAYAM platform, our own indigenous MOOC platform, making more than 20% to 40% of the credits being earned through that. All of that will go on. That is partly brick and mortar universities and colleges and partly the online mode. But the other part, which is significant and important, is how do we give education in the mother tongue? Because our schooling education has to be in the mother tongue so that child, when it shifts from home to the school, it does not get a shock and the transition is very smooth. And most of the primary education we are talking about should be taught in a manner that it is not a burden, not a tension, not a psychological affair where a child assumes that he cannot handle all of this. So tell stories, allow them to play with toys. Even scientific toys are available. So you can make use of all of this so that child becomes more and more interested in learning and create that interest. And that you can create through telling stories, through games. And, we have Panchatantra stories. You can create a short video of that and they will enjoy that. And while enjoyment is going on, they will keep learning. And that time they can learn, forget 3-language formula, which our country has been propagating for the last 70 years. We can have 5-language formula. Children at the age of 3 to 10 can learn as many languages. I cannot learn new language so easily. Now I have to struggle, not months, years together for learning a new language. But for a child of the age of 3 to 10, I think you tell stories in different languages, it will collaborate, with other children who know that language and say equivalent words and then pick up. And once you don't insist on reading and writing, child will not get disheartened. You tell stories, they will be interested. But if you say that you write in Tamil, or you write in Chinese, you write in in different language, they will find it very great difficulty, and they will be distressed about all of that. And that's what happens in learning sometimes mathematics, in learning history, in learning civics, in learning geography. Because different students, they don't like some of the subjects. Unless you make that interesting and give them story, a toy, etc., they will not be able to enjoy that. And that's what we are doing it in higher education also. How do we make use of teaching in all those respective Indian languages? And Swayam courses of the engineering curricula we are translating into 8 languages. AICT has already developed an auto translation tool which gives 90 to 95% accuracy. Now we have expanded from 8 to 11 languages. All major languages of India are covered, and I'm sure by the end of this June-July session, we will have textbooks available. The material of Swayam platform in English will be available in those 8 languages first, and subsequently in 11 languages, and students can start learning in their own language. And that is true accessibility. That is true taking care of the last man on the street, that we will be able to manage all of that. And therefore, pandemic has helped us. Let us be empathetic to our fellow citizens. And AICT's helpline. And just 3 days back, our minister launched one of the a small app which you can put it on your own server and locally. We have in computing, Manendra is there. So we started with small PC and computers. Then we went to supercomputers. We went to parallel computing. We then went to distributed computing, and all of these technologies are there. So even in the case of this particular case of helping each other, if the government has to do, it is doing, supplying oxygen cylinders or beds, etc., this being made available, etc., is fine. But at the local level, every college, every university, if you use the app which AICT has produced, we started with our own community. Because AICT, some of the employees were having difficulty in Delhi. So, and some of them in other regional offices. This app is a localized app. So all of us who know each other, we will support each other, whether it is in terms of finding a bed, or finding oxygen, or finding the medicine, or for taking them by transport to the hospital, or giving them food, or even if there is a financial difficulty to them. So this app is one where there are people who require help and people who will provide help. They are going to be linked with each other. And this app, if you are able to use, I'm sure the true empathy which we have to show to our own fellow citizens, we will be able to do that. I can go on, but I have another meeting at 12. It's already 11:58:59, I think, in my clock. So there is a ministry meeting which a skill development ministry is going to hold along with Ministry of Education and AICT. So I take my leave from out of you, and thank you very much for inviting, and let the conference be very successful. Let us learn a lot of things and implement them in real life, real practice. Namaskar.
Thank you very much.
Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank our guest